Can you talk about some projects that you're most excited about in the future with Indian Collective?
Okay, so as part of the Education Equity Coalition, or as part of the Education Equity Campaign, we get to build a school. So we just decided that we are not going to wait for legislation to pass. We're going to build the school and start gathering the data and just proving that our idea works, and just keep pressuring the state to address the achievement gap. Um, we will be fundraising in collaboration with NACA, with NSIN, so NACA Inspired Schools Network. NACA is a Native American, dang, I always forget what they're called, community academy in Albuquerque. And so we're collaborating really closely with NSIN at building this school, but not just our school, but supporting Sage Fast Dog School in Todd County and Camila Lock School in Standing Rock. And and trying to create like a consortium of these schools that are all trying to address the achievement gap in the ways that work for our community. So we're really excited about that. We are in the school design process. We have a fellow with NSIN, Mary Bowman, is going through the actual fellowship, learning how to design a school. And with us, so the really cool thing is with NDN deciding that we're just going to go ahead and build a school, that means we get to use NDN resources and NDN team. And we have like the most awesome communications team ever, like the best graphic artists and digital producers and all on staff with us. And so they'll help us with the development of our communications plan. We have an awesome advancement team. Um, and so they'll be able to help us with fundraising for the school and establishing a development plan for the school. And we obviously have the team. It was funny because we did a survey to like kind of gauge the internal capacity that we have. And like we have like 3 certified teachers on staff. We have people who have went to the original NACA school. We just have all this whole range of professionals and people with expertise that are going to lend that to this process. So that's pretty exciting too.
So, what does that process with opening up a new Indigenous-led community-based school in Rapid? What's that process look like with like the Rapid City, like as a whole?
So a big part of this process is community input. And so right now we are trying to like we're in this weird, right, like kind of post COVID, but not really, because some people aren't vaccinated. It's like trying to decide and figure out the safest ways to engage our community and start getting that input. Um, and that'll be the first step. Um, it's a whole process. So Mary's awesome and has already done like her mission statement and vision statement. She has all that stuff ready to go. She'll be looking at like policies for hiring the school leader. And yeah, it goes, the fellowship is, and we all have the book. So like we're walking with her now. We just got all of our books. So we'll be walking with her step by step through the whole process. Um, but yeah, the first thing will be community input and making sure that what we build, what we create here is exactly what our community wants and needs. That's probably the most important component. And that's the difference between our school and even like what so Rapid City Area Schools is like proposing a magnet school. And so that's the difference between what we're doing and what a magnet school is. Like we are definitely not replicating a system or something that's already in place. We're looking at building all of it from our own, from the Ocheti Shakoi thought and philosophy is what we say.
Since you've been experiencing racism in South Dakota, like in Rapid especially, um, with people who have lived in South Dakota their whole lives, what role do you think that South Dakota's education system plays in them just blatantly not knowing?
Yeah, no, our system definitely upholds it. And our state legislature repeatedly does not take opportunities to be a cultural curriculum for all or to engage in those honest conversations. And so um, our students are left behind at a consistent and historic rate in every measurable way that you look at education. So graduation rates, attrition rates, um proficiency, like proficiency by the end of grade level, like they're behind in every way. And by not acknowledging the unique history of our area and the history that is fraught with distrust and white supremacy, and the government actively working to you know, I hate to say, um to compare it to the Holocaust, but you know, actively working to erase us, is tough. And so as adults it's difficult, you know, like I feel like I'm just stepping into understanding all of the working pieces of this. And the education, I think the education system though is the one way, you know, we, our kids are super indoctrinated to believe in manifest destiny and the doctrine of discovery, and this idea that this land was free and open, that there's free land here. um and so like in the education of my own kids and being able to say, like my daughter came home the other day, well, this was a couple months ago, and she was like, have you heard of manifest destiny? And I was like, yeah. And she was like, okay, so what? Because I was like, so like manifest destiny is when they were literally like, there's free land in the West, and they believe that God gave them this right, you know, this, that it was somehow granted by God, you know, that they should be here and come and take this land. And I was like, but our people are living here. And so I had read The Journey of Crazy Horse, and so I was sharing with her, I was like, think of it like this, like when you read The Journey of Crazy Horse, he talks about seeing, they call it the Holy Road, you know, the wagon trail, and talking about like, oh, okay, yeah, you can have a wagon trail go through our land, like it's just two tracks, like, oh, okay, that's not so bad. And then like within 5 years being like, there's a bunch of dead carcasses off their land, there's graves all along off that trail, there's like broken wagon wheels left off that trail, like just talking about how they trash the land behind them. And then within 10 years being like, buffalo won't come here because of the road now, and the road is now not just a two track, it's like houses built along it, graves built along it. And I was like, that was during manifest destiny. And that's what it looked like to our people. And like being afraid to come to certain areas, so not being able to hunt, not being able to build new lodges or have, you know, clothing and stuff like that. And she was just like, oh, okay, I get, like, and then she's like, why would they put that in a book? And I'm like, that's because that's US history. And so it's funny because she was failing US history, and I was like, I know you need it as a prerequisite to graduate, but I couldn't care less if you can recite the dates of the US government, which is all you do in US history. So I'm like, bring your homework up here, sit at the table and sit here with me and dad. And like, we will sit here and answer all the questions for you because you need to graduate. But it does not matter. That learning, it does not matter, because I'm going to spend the rest of your life helping you unlearn it and counter it. Because, and so, but she knew. And so I'm like, well, are you going to talk about it in class, or do I email your teacher? And she's like, I'll talk about it. And so I was like, okay. Um, and it was funny because Journey too learned about, so she's in a homeschool pod. She's remote learning through Oglala Lakota County School District, and me and like four of my friends hired a certified teacher that teaches them every day. So we dropped them off at a little church, that it's a Waitan, it's like an Indian Lutheran church here in Rapid City, and they gave us a room for free. So we drop her off there, and then she gets like, goes to her classes, and it's wraparound Lakota language and culture. But we've also like got them a whole bunch of really, really cool speakers and people to come in and talk to them. And so she learned about the Dakota 38. And so um but no, Stella was talking about, she was like, wait, why don't you like Abraham Lincoln again? And Journey was like, the Dakota 38, he hung 38 Dakota people. And I was like, he did, you remember that? Like, holy shit. But it's because she's not in this system, like she's in this independent way of thinking. She's doing the things she needs to do, so she still does daily reading, English and math Zooms. But like, yeah, her PE and social studies are left up to our teacher at the pod. And so yeah, but I'm like, dang, that's crazy. And now we're just like, how do we continue this way of learning for her? And like, but yeah, it's scary. It's scary to have kids and to be like, they're gonna be indoctrinated, and I'm gonna have to spend my time like actively reteaching them what history and what was happening simultaneously with U.S. history. So ironic that they learn about the Holocaust and like things that were happening across the across the world, but they don't ever learn about what was happening here.
Yeah, that's I love that you guys are doing that with Journey and but
She's
so
speaking Lakota too, and like more than Uncle Tracy. He's like, dang, I gotta start learning, man, because she's like saying stuff. He's like, I don't even know what she's saying. So I was like, better get with
yeah.
it.
So what like how do you think that the new school being opened up in Rapid is going to address those issues while like maintaining like the South Dakota like guidelines for education?
No, we're super excited. So we call it vertical alignment. And we will be matching. So everything will be grounded in Ocheti Shakoi thought and philosophy. And so this is an example. The other day, um, Sarah Pierce, who works with me, was like, I was gonna put discipline matrix on the stuff that we need to work on. And then she's like, but then I was just like, ew, like we don't want to talk about the ways that we want to discipline kids. And so we were like, no, we need to talk about like what are going to be the agreements between teachers and students, what are going to be the agreements between teachers and parents, and like what are the agreements going to be with like our teachers in the community, and like start putting those into like kinship, like how we relate to each other and how we should treat each other. And like we are just like, holy crap, well, what does that look like in a discipline matrix? So like in the way they build it out and put it into tiers and stuff. And so we have a friend that does some of that work, Tamara Miyasato. And so we're like, ooh, we can hire Tamara, like we should totally just develop our own. And so that's like one way we're talking about, dismantling this system of oppression. And um things like obviously not having police in our school or around, needing police as a way to I don't even want to say discipline, but like discipline our kids, that we don't need any kind of punitive system. um and that we take every learning or teachable moment as a learning opportunity. um and we're just that kind of stuff, we're super excited. But the vertical alignment just means that everything that we have to do, all the state standards will just have an aligned cultural standard with them, and ways that we integrate language and culture into that standard. And that's something that we really look forward to doing, and just exploring all the ways we can integrate as much language and culture into a school day as possible without being an immersion school. So it's kind of cool. They call them dual language, when you just use as much. And Sage Fast Dog at Wakanyaja Tokeakji, I think is what his school's called. But he says that he's like, we're not immersion, but just like every single opportunity I can, we just use language. And he was like, but never to the point where it's a hindrance to the student, so that there's any way that they're not understanding or knowing what's going on. And I was just like, that's a really beautiful way of thinking about it.